I guess when we're ready to move on, we're gonna do our individual stories, which were just random pics that Creepypasta website generated for us. Or not already posted stories, but they just give us like a random pic. So these should be new for all of us. Okay. Home Alone. These events took place 20 years ago and are still fresh in the memories of those who have lived it, who even resorted to drugs to eliminate them from their minds. The names have been changed in the story for obvious reasons. The story we're about to tell you happened in America, in San Francisco. This is a spooky real-life story about a young boy that was left home alone. Unlike the famous Home Alone movies, this one is not one with a really happy ending. The events of that night left a whole family traumatized and a young boy scarred for life. If your interests include except for reading spooky stories or watching crime documentaries, playing games, you can have a look at I was just putting promo in here? Sorry. It was March 1991, and the married couple named George and Martha were ready to go out to dinner with the president of the company that George worked for. They had gotten all ready and prepared and were waiting for one thing, the nanny they hired to look after their 8-year-old son, Martin. The time was passing, and the nanny was really running late for her shift. The phone rang eventually, and the nanny was on the other line. The nanny had told them that she would be late because she was at the doctor with her aunt, and she had to stay. The parents did not know what to do, as they did not want to miss dinner, because it was extremely important, and George's job depended on it. Martin, realizing what had happened, told his mom not to worry, and that they could leave. He would lock the door himself and wait for the nanny to come. He promised that he would behave, be a good boy, and be very careful. The mother really did not want to leave her son alone, and she thought it would be best if her husband went to the dinner without her accompanying him. But her son was so convincing that he eventually managed to persuade them. The couple left the house, and Martin, after locking the door firmly, went to the kitchen where he took a bag of popcorn out of the fridge, filled it into a large bowl, and poured himself a big Coca-Cola glass. He went to the living room, turned on the TV, and was ready to enjoy the thriller that was playing, until the nanny would come when he would have to go to his room. He enjoyed being alone, without an adult telling him what to do, and he thought that he could make the best out of his alone and freedom time. He managed to watch a whole movie his parents would have not allowed him to watch if they were there. The time passed again, when suddenly a loud noise was heard. It was just a storm that suddenly broke out, and it started raining furiously, seemingly in a second. Martin kept watching TV until it got worse. The storm was so strong that the lights of the house and the neighborhood went off. The TV was off, and Martin was now waiting for the nanny to come as soon as possible. When in the darkness, a voice was heard saying, "Hi, do you want us to play? Do you want us to play hide and seek?" Martin was startled. He heard no noise from anyone entering the house, and the door was well locked, and the windows were closed. The voice was childish and of a little girl. It was heard more loudly this time. "Do you want to play? Do you want to play? Do you want to play?" Martin panicked. He tried not to cry. He remained as calm as he possibly could. He threw down the popcorn and Coca-Cola and, making no more noise, walked slowly into his room. He entered the room and hid under the bed. Wait for the nanny, he was thinking. The time passed, and the voice was no longer heard. Martin was still terrified until the door slammed. He immediately thought that it was the nanny who finally came. He got out of bed, opened the door slowly, and went to the front door. When the voice was heard again, but this time loudly, "Let's play! Let's play!" Martin turned his head and saw something highly unusual and started screaming. The nanny, who heard the screams with the help of the neighbors, broke down the door and found the child on the floor unable to breathe. He immediately called an ambulance, and they went to the hospital, where the frightened parents arrived. Days later, after doctors tried to see what frightened the child so much, Martin uttered only one phrase from his mouth: "She has no face! She has no face!" Martin did not speak again, and 2 years later he was under medical treatment by doctors and psychologists. The parents never found out what had happened. Only 8 months later, Many in the surrounding area started speculating about an old abandoned factory. The story goes that in 1950, some children had secretly entered to play hide and seek. Then a great fire broke out, and the children, without anyone's help, were trapped inside and burned alive. In fact, the corpses were so burnt that they shocked the medical examiner himself. Since then, many have been talking about strange things happening in the factory since it was not rebuilt. Two children who went in there overnight heard laughter and voices heard from inside, and of course, ran away as fast as they could. Martin did not speak again until he was 22 years old, and with the help of hypnosis, he confessed what happened to him. The details are yet unknown and a complete mystery to us. What exactly happened to this boy that made him practically mute for almost 2 decades to come? Who was that mysterious child? Was she one of the burn factory's poor victims? More importantly, is she still around? The way I ended probably didn't sound good, but I was just like, is she still around?
Find out
Um,
next time.
yeah. Tune in and
Tune
we'll
in.
give you updates. I like how they set it up thinking like, "Oh, actually, we found out about what happened, but I guess we'll find out more later."
Like the end of one of those mystery crime episodes.
Yeah,
They're
they're just
just
like,
like
"Subscribe and keep watching to see what
they're
happens
just like,
next."
who is she? More importantly, is she still out there?
In the comments section,
Ooh.
someone said that they had heard about the factory but can't remember which one it was. As far as I know, like I don't know about any factory fire. I do know about a warehouse fire. Um,
Yeah, I guess maybe it's that similar idea then.
Perhaps, yeah.
Maybe.
And the other comment just says, "Wow.
Wow.
Wow."
This one is one more for the orphan. In a small orphanage in a small village in Russia, there is a young boy. His hair is jet black and messy, and he had tattered jeans and an old dingy gray shirt. Nothing is known of him. For 10 years he sat in the bed in his room, never moving, never blinking, never eating or sleeping. I just had to do that real quick. I'm back. In the 10 years, he has not seemed to age at all, continuing to look like a 7-year-old boy. The only thing that proves he was alive is the slow rise and fall of his chest as he breathes, and the refusal to take his eyes off anyone who enters the room alone. A lone psychiatrist came over in an attempt to find out why the boy had done nothing in 10 years. He entered the room and shut the door behind him. 30 minutes later, the orphanage's nurse came to check on the two of them. Opening the door, she saw the child, still sitting, still not moving, eyes fixed on her. However, something seemed different. He appeared a slight amount larger, not by much, but enough to make him look like a late 8 or an early 9-year-old. The psychiatrist was no longer in the room. The door was the only exit, and the room had no windows, vents, or anything, and it was, in fact, in the exact center of the orphanage. He continued to sit, only seen occasionally by the lady who came in to check on him, and she never closed the door upon entry. A week or so later, two law enforcement personnel entered the orphanage demanding to speak to the boy about the disappearance of the psychiatrist. The two of them entered, closing the door behind him, as the head of the orphanage stood outside the door. 30 minutes passed, and not a sound came from the room. The head eased the door open. The boy was still on the bed, but the officers were no longer there. The boy was now quite noticeably bigger, about the size of a 15-year-old. His skin was darker than usual, and he looked angrier than ever. But one thing remained the same, his cold, unforgiving eyes that stared at whoever entered. Eventually, the law organized a large group of 10 officers to speak to the boy. They entered the room and left the door open until one of the younger orphans ran up and shut it, apparently in a daze. The head quickly ran to reopen the door, and upon doing so, froze him in horror. A low, rumbling noise came from the room. One more. If you return to that orphanage, you will see it still continues to run. The orphans live in good care, health, and education. However, there is one room that you still see is boarded up and far from enterable. If you ask what is behind it, you will be removed forcefully from the orphanage. However, when no one's looking, if you place your ear to the door, you will hear a low, ominous growling sound. And if you listen for a bit, you will hear one more.
I see.
I'd like to know
You wanna
what is the importance of his skin getting darker?
I was gonna ask about that too. I was like, are they implying like he's like changing to like is he just like a regular kid, but then he just has darker skin, or is he like
Is he
Unless
like
changing to
he's
getting
like
a
a creature
tan or
thing?
is he
unless
Did
he's
he just get too much
merging with
sun?
them.
Oh, but
Is he like absorbing them? And that's
I
why he's
guess
Yeah,
changing
but
slightly?
it could be, or I don't know.
like it seems to change his age.
Right.
Oh,
Like he has to like absorb people to age for some reason.
I didn't know if he was just eating them and was like non-human, or if he was just literally phasing with them and like just changing his form over time.
Yeah, I
yeah,
was like,
when the
is he just like
psychiatrist, like, disappeared at first, like, in my head, it was just really loud. I was just like, "He ate him!"
Yeah, he just swallowed him whole.
I like to imagine that he just sat there and like opened his mouth and like there was just a vacuum sound, he just got sucked in.
Yeah, just like the little Kirby, but it's like the sucking Kirby.
This is a
Remember if
Kirby fic.
That would be
yeah,
terrifying to walk in on. Okay, I guess it's my turn.
yeah.
This story is called What Happens After. You never escape. Not really. It's always going to be there. Sometimes hidden away in the back of your mind in the form of a nightmarish memory, or it sits and stares at you in the face, daring you to just try and forget. Do I consider myself lucky? Maybe. I don't know anymore. I did at one point, I suppose. I encountered something terrible, inhuman, a real whatever it was. It tried to hurt me. It hurt my friends, my family, all to get at me. I don't want to talk about it. Even thinking about it is causing my hands to shake. God, I'm sweating. The scars on my arms are itching at the memories floating back. But it isn't what I wanted to talk about. More rather, I want to talk about after. The creature killed people, and it almost killed me, but I beat it. I stopped it. Sometimes, on the darkest of days, I try to think of myself as a hero, that by stopping it, I saved countless future victims, or that I avenged my fallen family. But I know it was just self defense, nothing more. A man isn't a hero for shooting a charging bear. He's just lucky the odds were in favor. I don't consider myself a hero, or lucky either now. I hear so many stories of people surviving against odd creatures, monsters and demons, but they don't delve into what happens after. Maybe a few lines, but never the details. You don't hear about the countless sleepless nights, staring out your dark window, imagining a beast pressing its head up against the window, staring and smiling. You don't hear how they jump at the slightest creak in the house, wondering if another of its brethren has come to sink those stinking claws into you for revenge. They don't talk about how their home is gone, lost, not to those creatures, but to memories. You can wash away the blood from a room, but not from your mind. I can still see my little brother's room. So much. That's what happens after. The worst thing about that dark world that lies just out of sight of our own is knowing that it's there, knowing that the dark should be feared, that every creak or rustle can have something terrible behind it. I know, and worse, I can see them. Once you've been touched, it's like you're attuned for them now. You notice the small signs that give them away. I've seen a young boy play with a little girl who almost managed to hide the small, bloody hole in the back of her head with her long brown hair. I've seen the jogger running through the park, unaware of how the trees above her rustle along at just the right intervals to constantly remain right above her, She looked just like my friend Connie, too. God, I miss her. Alright, go ahead and freak out, phone. That's fine.
Oh no. I hate that too.
I've almost thrown up many times to the news articles outlining mysterious suicides where the victims showed no signs of depression but seemed to always occur in the darkest hours of the night. Sometimes I wonder if I should get involved, warn the jogger or the boy of the creatures they've attracted, try to help them escape a fate that no person should be forced through. But the truth is, I'm terrified. If I help, I know I'll attract them back to me. I managed to keep my head down long enough after that creature to avoid any others. However, constantly sitting back and watching them target those poor people has weighed on me. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. Sometimes, on the blackest nights, when all light seems to be snuffed out, and the creaking grows in my house to where I'm sure they found me, I pull out the small pistol I bought. It gives me comfort. It reminds me that those things are vulnerable at least. Claws, nasty face, or an inhuman body doesn't make you bulletproof. Now, it's a different comfort I feel as I place the cold barrel into my mouth, the metallic taste on my tongue, and the surprisingly heavy weight in my hands seems to call to me, offer a way out. It gives me a chance to be free from this dark knowledge. I could never do it, though. It's not because I have some great deed left to do, or even because I really want to live on. It's because death horrifies me. It chills me to my core. Every time I think about it, my mind turns to them. I get the feeling that's what they're waiting for death to take me as he has countless others. Then I would join them in their world. Nothing would stand in their way as they claimed me like one tried to do long ago. I just know, deep down, that the only thing that separates my world from theirs is this fragile, delicate body I live in. So there really is no escape. No matter how long you run or hide or forget, you can never escape the inevitable. One day, they'll have me, and there's nothing I can do to stop it.
This one was pretty cool. I don't know why this one had like a lower rating than the other one.
I like
Um,
this one.
yeah.